This is Rob Stone from Fox Sports.
Hey guys, this is Cole Liker.
Hi, I'm Neil Collins.
You are listening to the Unused Substitute.
The Unused Substitute.
And you're listening to the Unused Substitutes.
Get off the bench!
Hey there, Little Red Riding Hood, I got a problem and it's complicated. Going through changes and I just can't ignore the signs. There and now it's so loud it hurts. Hear me bell, hear me howl with the full moon.
On the throw, ball's gonna bounce down, it's free in the box. Bicycle kick! Goal! Rowdies! What a play! What a shot! And it's 1-0 Rowdies!
Good evening, everybody. It's Wednesday night. It's 8 o'clock. This is the Unused Substitutes, your green and gold gospel, your Rowdies Talk Radio, live on Radio St. Pete, part of the Beautiful Game Network, and sponsored by Roughneck Scarves. My name is Matt. On the other side of the conference call from me is a guy who definitely would not put Madrid before golf or Wales either. Steven, how are you doing tonight?
Happy that my head coach is not Jose Mourinho. That is what I am thankful for today.
So I was out at Shamrock last night watching the U.S. men Cuba game, and there's a large number of Tottenham fans there. None of them are happy right now, and this was like just as the news was breaking that the rumors were true that the Mourinho was going to sign. Oh God, they're all pissed.
Of course they should be. That is one of the craziest and drastic moves. I mean, I'm trying to even consider what would be something comparable to what we see with Tottenham right now. Like, what? You dump Pochettino for Mourinho? What? That doesn't. That's crazy to me. It is crazy.
There's an article that came across ESPN FC on my drive home today that was kind of like the behind the scenes of, because it was 11 hours between statements from Tottenham about Pochettino being sacked and Mourinho being hired. And I don't know if there's been a press conference. Did Jose like just immediately launch into them for not buying any players to begin with? Because it's like, I wanted the first statement about firing Pochettino to just say, look, we couldn't fire all the players.
Well, let's put it this way. There's one really fascinating tidbit about this, and that is the amount of money that Tottenham is going to be paying out in manager salaries now is basically like a player or two equivalency of like really, really high quality players that they could have spent that money on instead.
So is Pochettino the Willie Taggart of the Premier League?
Say what?
Is Pochettino the Willie Taggart of the Premier League?
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, it's legitimately one of those things where you're looking around going, wait a minute, so you've had how many millions of dollars that you're sitting on to be able to afford to do this in the first place, and you couldn't spend that money on a player for Posh? I don't get it. How does that happen? That's the thing that gets me, is that the moves themselves just don't make sense, because everybody, all I've heard from the outside, granted, again, I'm not a Tottenham supporter. I'm hearing all of this from the outside because I'm Swansea. So I'm looking at, like, everything you hear for the last several years has been Tottenham's not spending money, at least to the level that they could be maybe, or maybe should be, quote unquote. You know, they're sitting on cash. They're sitting on cash. He's not getting the support he needs. And then he takes them to the UEFA Champions League final. It's not like they've ever had a bad year up until this year.
Right.
And then a few months later, he's sacked. And they spend almost the equivalent of $30 million, basically, on managers. at the same time. What is going on at I feel, honestly, as a fan of a lower club, I feel bad for the guys that are fans and supporters of Tottenham, because I wouldn't know what to do with myself. I mean, this is as bad as like when Swansea hired Bob Bradley.
I believe this is what the kids these days like to call Spursy.
Yes,
This is Spursy. All right. So we're doing a little kind of a different show tonight. We don't have a Rowdies game to break down or a Rowdies game to preview. We are going to talk a little bit about the USL Championship Cup Trophy Championship Clash of Champions Final Trophy Cup Trophy Cup shortly. But we've got a guest coming on who I put it out there last night after I got home, and after having a few beverages, I was like, let's talk some stuff. Scott Stewart, who works in communications for USL, is co-host of USL's Steal Some Time podcast. I still think they should let him work his name in there somehow too. Is going to come on, and we're going to talk about a bunch of league news and some Rowdy stuff with him. But we've really only got kind of one Rowdy's tangential bit of information. It's more of like confirmation of something we knew or seeming like confirmation. Stephen, what's going on with Tarek Murad?
So Murad put out a Instagram post and linked it over to his Twitter, basically saying that he was going back home to California. He thanked everybody for the opportunity, and it basically kind of confirmed what most of us were thinking was probably going to happen with Murad, and that was that it looks like his contract, I think, was just a 1 year. It expired. Mm-hmm. And at this point, it looks like he's probably just going to challenge himself somewhere else. And that's basically his trademark. So that really isn't surprising, but it really confirmed what we all kind of thought was going to happen with him. The tidbit was that he went back out to California to spend time with family and friends this offseason at the very least. How that's interesting, though, is how does that correlate with USL clubs that might be based out there? Maybe he's going to stay out there and, wink, wink, nod, nod. So that's something to keep an eye on as far as what his future looks like. And, of course, we all wish everybody the best that, leaves the Rowdies. I mean, we just had, at least 3 former Rowdies that were in this past weekend's championship game. So, yep. I mean, we love everybody that comes through these halls, as it were.
I mean, yeah.
Let's face it. We, to a marginal degree, we love everybody that has walked through that building, even today.
My offhand comment, but honestly wouldn't surprise me, is if he pops up on the inaugural San Diego Loyal roster.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I said, it's a wink, wink, nod, nod moment, because what does that necessarily mean? What's the implication to going back to California? I mean, I understand he's from there and he's got people out there, but could there be a move to California? So, I mean, who knows? But we wish him the luck. And it would be comforting if he actually does go Western Conference, because at least we know we wouldn't have to play against him right away.
Right. So we'll get to talk about it some more in depth. I just want to point out real quick before Scott comes on, I called Royale Monarchs upsetting Louisville City to win the championship. I finally got one over on Patrick. Patrick, who has been throwing predictions that have been coming true from every angle heading into the offseason. And I'll be the first to admit it, I kind of just said it to be contrarian. When Louisville scored that first goal, I was like, all right, it's going to be one of those finals where the East team kind of just romps on the West, but did not turn out to be the case. And as soon as the Monarchs got that goal lead and Louisville had to play from behind, the home field advantage didn't quite matter anymore, and it turned out to be. So it's congratulations to the Monarchs, congratulations to Jack Blake, congratulations to Luke Mulholland, who I believe is now undefeated in 3 Division II championship games. He won with us. He won the year before with Minnesota, if I remember correctly.
Yes, he did.
And now he's won with Royale Monarchs. So, I think it's time for him to come back home to Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Just saying. Bring it on back here, Luke. We'd love to see you. Of
course, it'd be interesting to see how he would fit into a roster like ours the way it's set up right now, but
player assistant coach.
Yeah.
All right, so we're waiting for Scott to hop on with us. Should be here in a momentarily. I guess we can go ahead and talk about some other guests coming up in the near future. I totally threw it out there on Twitter just as not even as a joke because I was going to ask him seriously, but he fell for it hook, line, and sinker. So I believe we're going to have. I think we're taking next week off for Thanksgiving because someone's got to cook the turkeys. It's not me. I'm going to go pick it up from the person who is, but someone's got to do it. And then we'll be back the week after, and unless something weird happens, I think we're going to have Jochen Graf on the show. I want to talk to him a little bit about what he's doing nowadays, and kind of what he's up to, and just kind of catch up. And I kind of want to see. One of the things I want to ask Scott about tonight is working in the league office, especially in the communications area. What's the offseason like for him? We kind of get an idea what it's like for players and staff and stuff here. Kind of want to see what's the offseason like in there. What's the kind of things he's looking ahead to. But I want to talk to Jochen a little bit too about what's the offseason like for a player, especially in lower division soccer. I was thinking about this because I'm not sure 100% what he's doing now, but it looks like he's doing some work with his former agency, the agency that repped him. And I was kind of thinking, I almost felt like I had to find the polite way to say it. But I mean, I just think about he was here for a while, then he was in Reno, then he went to Cosmos, and then went to Memphis. That's almost like the typical year in a life of a lower division player. And him kind of having that fresh perspective, having just done this, what's it going to be like for, how does that help him with what he's doing? And I'm not sure if he's doing a full on agent kind of job or if he's doing something else with them. We'll talk to him and find out. What else has been going on? What you been up to?
He's just like, we're stalling. So, hey, you talk now. This is why we're unused substitutes. I'll say this. I mean, I'm not doing much, but
I'm talking with Scott right now, so we'll get this set up here in just a second.
Okay. No, I for one enjoyed the game this weekend, the championship game. It was fun watching Louisville lose. I threw it out there. I was like, so which one am I more happy about? And the resounding response was everybody was happy that Louisville lost. I will say this. I'm taking a certain level of gratitude that they are opening a stadium now without raising a new championship banner. It is kind of nice to know that they're not going to get that opportunity. So I must admit it made me smile a little inside. But yeah, the game itself, though, just real quick, because I know we're getting Scott lined up here. There was a comment early on about how wide open this game was going to be as far as the Louisville, what Hackworth saw when he watched the Real Monarchs semifinal game. And he was like, oh, there's plenty of space and we're just going to exploit the crap out of that. And we're just going to run right through them. And it worked for 5 minutes. They scored their goal. And then it died. It was dead there. And Monarchs figured it out. It was interesting.
All right. I'm going to cut in there because we've got someone now who's going to give us some opinions. And I haven't owned up to this, Stephen. I figured out what the problem was. I gave Scott the wrong number.
Well done.
I gave him the voicemail number, not the call-in number. But we've got it sorted out. And Scott, I believe you are here with us. How's it going?
Hey, gentlemen. I'm doing very well. Appreciate the time.
No problem. Hey, and if you ever want to leave us a voicemail, now you've got that number too, for whatever reason.
Yeah, I'll book that for Saturday nights from March to November next year.
Nice. All right, so we were talking a little bit. We didn't want to hop because we kind of want to run through. We don't really have any big Rowdies news to go over, so we thought we'd hit you up for your perspective on the championship game, off-season stuff, kind of what's building towards next year. And your take on some of the news going on. But first off, we kind of introduced you a little bit, but I'm sure we messed something up. Tell us who you are.
Yeah, I'm Scott Stewart, the Senior Communications Manager at USL, formerly of Indy 11 and Lou City FC. Moved down to Tampa last February, so I guess officially just completed my first season at the league office. And wow, what an ending.
Yeah, so you guys were out there at Louisville for the game, right?
Yeah. There was a nice crew of us, probably 12 to 15 deep, that went up there and helped Louisville put on their third straight show. But result aside for them, I'd say things went very, very well.
So talking about the result for a second, I was talking to Stephen. We made predictions last week. He predicted Louisville, and I, semi just out of the interest of being contrarian, picked Royale Monarchs, and of course now I'm gloating about it because I saw this coming a mile away. And a lot of the talk leading up to it was that it was really kind of Louisville's game to lose. They've been on such a run when it comes to the postseason to begin with, and we don't want to talk about how that run started this year too much. But it seemed like it was everything was just like it's almost foregone conclusion. They get the early goal. What happened? How did the Monarchs turn this around?
Yeah, it's crazy. It was an incredible game, and I heard Mike Watts pregame mention that he thought that a team would break the all-time or fastest goal of all time scored in the championship final. I think he mentioned that would happen. But asking around pregame, I think Louisville fans were cautiously optimistic. I think they were confident, but they've been through this before. They didn't want to jinx themselves, yada yada. So I think a lot of them felt good going into the game. I know the Monarchs fans who traveled were very passionate about the fact that they thought they stood just as good of a chance as anyone who's been to Louisville in the last few years, which I thought was interesting. But yeah, Magnus scores, and I think this is what I was telling a couple of people at the game on Saturday. I think scoring in the 7th minute, and this is going to sound kind of weird in some ways, but I think it almost ballooned the atmosphere a little bit, and then it just popped. And the Monarchs scored. When they scored their first goal, like, Louisville's never been scored on in a championship final before. Mm-hmm. And so I'm thinking to myself, like, when the Monarchs find a way to get one back and then they score their second, not incredibly long after that, I think the Louisville fans were just kind of like, we've never seen this before. Like, we've never been, let alone scored on, we've never been in a losing position in a final. And again, I think that there was confidence both on the team side, on the field, and in the stands that they would be able to mount a comeback. But the Monarchs proved exactly what their fans thought. They just had every right to be there, and obviously showed why they are USL Championship final winners now.
Just out of curiosity, do you think that with Royale Monarchs being in the final, because that was a team that really not a lot of people would have predicted to have been in that match compared to, say, a Phoenix, do you think that may have kind of helped them in the, like, mentally speaking, kind of come back from that early deficit? Because I think a lot of people from the outside would say that Monarchs were kind of playing without pressure. Like, Phoenix would have been going into that game with a mountain of pressure. Monarchs kind of had nothing to lose going into that match. Do you think that may have been a factor in that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. Conrad Plua was in the post-match press conference. He was the Monarchs rep, and he was saying, he was almost like angry about it to a degree, but he was like, "Oh, underdogs. We love being underdogs. Like, all week we heard this was Louisville's final. Oh, it's Louisville's chance at a third straight title. Like, no one talking about us. Like, very adamant, very, very passionate about the fact that he felt that they were just going to fly under the radar, and they were going to let it happen and let their game speak. And I think it played a huge factor in it. I think even to a degree, I don't know how many Louisville fans would want to admit that the pressure was certainly more on them than it was the Monarchs. I think the only thing you could say for them is they would have been the first team, the first roadside to win a championship final. So yeah, I think it helps that too many people didn't dig into the fact that, like, the Conrad Pluas and Noah Powders of the world obviously were on that Red Bulls 2 team in 16 that did so well. And then you got guys like Jack Blake, who's obviously been around the championship. And the fact that Douglas Martinez was out, I think, just added to that. They just kind of felt like, not necessarily from a Monarch side that it's a free hit, but I think the Louisville fans just thought, okay, they're missing their leading goal scorer. This is an MLS 2 team. Here we go.
I was kind of thinking along the same lines. A lot's been made the last couple seasons about how Louisville has kept this team together, or at least the core of this team together, and that's been one of the reasons that they were able to get back-to-back wins, to dig their way back into a home playoff position to start off this year and get back to the final. And I kind of wondered if, these guys having been there before and done that, there actually is some extra pressure on the Louisville guys to try and repeat that performance. And again, like Steven just said, for the Monarchs guys, I mean, they're playing with a guy who, technically still was labeled as the interim manager. That I saw the tag's been taken off, and I think everyone kind of felt he was the guy to get that job anyway. But they were playing down one of their key players was suspended. There really was no pressure on them. Like it's cool that they're there, and if they win, it's going to be huge. And if they lose, like there's all kinds of reasons already built in that people are gonna fall back on.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think that for Louisville, with expectation comes pressure. And I think that when you do have as many returning guys, as you mentioned, and you've been there the last 2 years, that of course the expectation is, okay, Louisville at home, 12-0-0 all time in playoff games. Yeah, we're probably going to take that team. And I don't think anyone could be faulted for being confident in that Louisville team, especially under John Hackworth, who has also been there for at least one entire cup run. It just didn't shake out that way. And I think it's hard to provide a proper explanation for the Louisville fans why things ended up going the wrong way. But I think the Monarchs were just ready when they were asked, and a very, very good Louisville team just came up short.
All right, so it's officially the off season for everybody. Everyone's now in our boat, and we're used to looking at things from our perspective as fans. And we talk to some of the players and the coaches, and we kind of know what they do in terms of off season preparation, or if they're looking for teams, or when training starts, stuff like that. But from your guys' perspective at the we'll call it the mothership over there in Tampa, what's your, like, now you're in the off season, what are you guys working on now?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of like the boring day-to-day basics, like the scheduling of games, working on linear broadcasts with ESPN, setting schedules. For me, it's just kind of guiding clubs from a communication standpoint, however we're needed. But I think like the most fun part for me is seeing all the turnover equally as much as, the teams that are bringing back heavy amounts of players. Like the Rowdies bringing back, a good bundle of guys, Indy bringing back a good bundle, Phoenix back a good bundle. And then I think we're going to have some surprising roster moves as well. Like I'm not sure El Paso is going to look exactly like El Paso did this last season. So I think it's fun. It's kind of cool for us to hold and run this transfer tracker type deal where we basically just sit and wait for teams to email us and say, hey, we're making an announcement. And then we're like, all right, wow, I can't wait to see how that player does in X market or playing under X coach. It's just a different world out there. So I enjoy the off season.
We've got a couple big storylines maybe at the league level. You've got San Diego coming online for next season. Just made an announcement yesterday about Buffalo. What's the story with Buffalo?
Buffalo right now is largely a real estate move where they're looking to secure a stadium similar to Des Moines, but a little bit different, where they're looking to secure a stadium, and with a stadium, a USL Championship club. And so obviously with the news of Queensboro FC last week, we've had our eye on that property for a little bit. And so looking forward to seeing that one play out.
How big is the Landon Donovan news, do you think?
I think Landon is, first off, Landon's an incredible guy, and we're very grateful for his time. He came out to the final and hopped on the halftime broadcast with our president, Jake Edwards. But I think Landon's undertaking is huge, and I think it's even cooler that he's got somebody like Carrie Taylor standing there as his assistant coach, one of very few females I think the championship's ever had in a role like that. So I'm really excited to see how San Diego plays out. They've got a guy in Warren Smith who's at the top of that organization and does things very, very well, and more importantly, does things the right way. So I think there's a significant amount of promise in San Diego. It's just about seeing who they lock down and who Landon is going to end up overseeing on the field.
I was kind of laughing when they made that announcement. It might have been the first game that I talked to you at Al Lang this season. There was a rep from the San Diego front office there, just kind of checking out the match day experience and seeing what they wanted to integrate as far as supporters groups and atmosphere and stuff like that. So I was talking to him for a little while, and I just kind of joked. I said, "You guys are going to hire Landon, aren't you?" And he's like, "No, definitely not. He's going to work with the academy kids. We've got this structure set up. Definitely not doing it." And I didn't believe him then either, but I chuckled a little bit when they made that announcement.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to be excited for him, though. I think that, he's been working really hard on getting his badges and getting up to speed for the proper qualifications to lead a championship club into the future. And like I said, I mean, if you're courting players or you're looking at the player pool in the United States and beyond, it's like, who wouldn't want a crack at working with a guy like Landon? So it's a great market. They've got a great place to play, and now obviously one of the most accomplished players in our country's history at the helm.
I saw some pictures from your guys' trip to Louisville. We mentioned it earlier before you came on. I don't think you've humble bragged it yet, but you are also the co-host of a soccer podcast. It's a rare position to have in this country, someone co-hosting soccer podcast. And you met? I saw you met a couple people that we know that have traveled here to Al Lang for games. When are they going to let you fit your name into the title? First of all.
Yeah, I don't. I haven't asked for equal billing yet. It's not one of the highest priorities in my life. I think we're all more just fortunate that Kelsey would put up with me and Matt Calvo every week. I think that's the biggest ask here. I think she almost deserves to have it on her own at this rate. But yeah, that was a great time. Got a nice little hotel venue that does this really cool toast at 7:33, like a toast to end Prohibition or something like that, or
nice.
Toasting the end of Prohibition. Yeah, so that was nice. Got a little free drink out of it. But yeah, saw some incredible people. Louisville has great fans, and just like the Rowdies, they travel well. They're a very proud club, a club that wants to do things the right way. And yeah, it was great to catch up with a lot of people who are familiar faces to me for different reasons than others in the league office. But yeah, it was a good time. We're glad that we were able to have that opportunity to sort of be in a more intimate setting than just in an office conference room,
So speaking of all of those friends that you made up in Louisville, I have an interesting question for you at this point. With this championship game wrapped up here and the fact that the West won the championship game, let me ask you just a flat out kind of a buzz question of sorts. Who ends 2019 as the better conference? Is it the Western Conference or Eastern Conference at the end of the day?
That's a good question. I'd say protecting myself, patting myself a little bit. I got to see how the rosters end up shaking out. I'll have a better answer in February than I will in November. But in saying that, I do think that the West continues to get stronger and stronger every year. I still think the Eastern Conference was the stronger conference throughout the season. I think that it's hard to argue that, again, just based on the expectation that Louisville would win again. If they did win again, I don't even know how much we would be talking about the West right now. But the West provided us with a lot of action. The West obviously showed that it may be as open from top to bottom in terms of the playoff teams as the Eastern Conference is. I don't know, guys. Let me just say that I would love to be somewhere warm next November and not Louisville, Kentucky. So if I can get my way, it would be a Western Conference side that at least is hosting a final.
I mean, it's not too bad down here at Al Lang.
No, it's not. It's not at all. And I actually got called kind of crazy. They were like, well, don't you want to travel? Don't you want to go out and market? I was like, guys, sleep in my own bed, roll over to Al Lang every day. Like, what could be better? You're talking about the dream over
fantastic. So yeah, you mentioned you'd worked before with Indy back in the NASL days. You worked in with Louisville before coming to the league office. You are a frequent visitor to Al Lang on game days. We won't disappoint your former coworkers by expressing that we know where your heart lies now. But how? So, you work for the team, but you did this because you like the sport, and you can't help but be fans of these teams that you work with, even after you've maybe moved on. How weird was it to watch Louisville first play the Rowdies, and then you've got Louisville Indy going up? I mean, can we call that the Scott Stewart Derby?
No, I would literally rather have it called anything but the Scott Stewart Derby. But no, I think, one thing that I'm really grateful for is that we are headquartered in a market that does have a championship club. It does allow me, when I'm not on game duty, to be able to get out and see our product live and in the flesh. It also is a big bonus to me that I'm more familiar with the Rowdies than I could have been at this point in my career. But I will say that I think I've done a good job of setting loyalties aside when it comes to sort of work versus play. I think that obviously Indy and Louisville hold a different place in my heart just because of the career experience, and now the Rowdies just because I've been able to be down here and see it in the flesh. But I would go as far as saying I really don't think it would matter where we were, that as long as we were in a championship market that had a team that was ambitious, a team that wanted to go after something, I'd just be grateful that we had it around. So it's a challenge, I think, sometimes, especially when Kelsey asks those buzz questions to me and she's like putting me on the spot, and I'm like, dude, that's like kind of not cool. But no, it's great. It's great. I'm lucky to have worked for two incredible clubs and to have a third right down the road.
All right, one more thing, and we'll let you go. We're going to keep you on here all night, but we appreciate you joining us. You're mentioning how it's the offseason. I mean, probably the first biggest thing to take care of is figuring out the schedule for next year. You mentioned that, and it made me think about the one of the press conferences before the championship game when Coach Hackworth mentioned something about it'd be great if we got back to some interconference play. We did that, I want to say, the first year or two, because I remember the Rowdies beat Salt Lake, or beat the Monarchs when they were on one of their unbeaten streaks. We played San Antonio before. Looking at the way, if we just look at the teams that we know right now, with Ottawa and Nashville not in the picture anymore in the East, and Fresno, whatever's going on with Fresno, but then San Diego coming in, it seems like we're going to have we could have a possibility of not having that 18 on both sides. What do you like? What do you think about interconference play, and is it something that could come into play next year? Or I know the St. Louis fans are just sitting there waiting to find out like if they're going to be in the same conference for 2 seasons in a row. It's one of the quirks and one of the fun things about lower division soccer. But what's your point of view on that?
On interconference play specifically, it was a great question asked by Dan Carell, who does a lot of good work for the soccer community in Louisville. But B, I'm a big fan of it. I think that if we can make it feasible, if we can make it easy to do and somehow find a way to help take some of the travel costs off the team's shoulders, I think that it'd be something that would really, really add to our league. That said, I also kind of like the exclusivity of like Monarchs never having seen Louisville before in any capacity. Like I think there's almost a sacredness that comes with a game like that. But I mean, I would love to be able to do things like that July 4 game, the Rowdies Monarchs game. That was that a couple years ago? Right?
Not last season before.
2 or 3.
Yeah.
It was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. But I love that, like especially on a special occasion like that, to have like an Independence Day game where you're bringing together somebody from the West or somebody from the East. I think I've seen some fans clamoring for Eastern Conference and Western Conference shields, and then having those two teams still celebrate sort of a league title of sorts, and then meet in the middle for what you would call somewhat of a championship game. And I think I'm a fan of all of it. I would love our markets to be able to interact as much as possible. So if we're creating more soccer opportunities and more like fan community driven opportunities, then I think it's something we should go after.
I've just always wanted, and I don't even know the full reason why, I can't even explain it myself, but ever since the Rowdies have moved to USL, I just want a Rowdies Sacramento game, which of course is going to be like the worst, some of the worst travel involved when you look at distances between two teams. I just want to see that happen. I think it'd be a lot of fun, and it looks like chances are maybe starting to dwindle. And I lied. I do want to get you on one more thing because it just came up. I've got the USL site open here while I'm talking to you. That new Indy away jersey for next year. How sweet is that thing?
Are you a fan?
The checkers are back. I like it. I like what they did with it. It kind of reminds you of the old NASL jersey, but with a little bit of an updated twist on it.
Yeah, I think it's nice. The color scheme is nice. I think given what Adidas is able to do, or what Adidas provides to teams, I think that they did a really good job of maximizing, sort of going after the look they know their fans are going to crave.
All right, so we'll let you go, but tell everyone where they can find you online. Tell them how to find how to find the podcast so they can listen to the hot takes. I've got a segment suggestion for you if you're looking for a topic this week. Or are you on off-season break? My suggestion would be, what is the worst Thanksgiving food, and why is it pumpkin pie?
Well, at least I can take an early position and win at least one heart in this argument. So, no, that's good. That's good. I'm sure that I can't guarantee the thinking of Matt Calvo when he goes through these things, but he is a timely man, and so I have a feeling it will be Thanksgiving related in some way, shape, or form. I'll go to bat for you, though, man. I don't mind.
All right, Scott. Go ahead.
Yeah, but Steal Some Time. Just listen to Steal Some Time. Kelsey Steele, Matt Calvo, and myself, the USL podcast every week, and then I'm Scott Stewart on Twitter. That's probably the easiest way to harass me.
All right, I think Steven want to jump in one last time.
Oh, I was just gonna say, for those that are listening to the show, definitely listen to Steal Some Time. It's very fun. It's a great show that you and Kelsey and Matt put on. So I honestly, I've listened to every episode since you guys launched, because that is the only place I go to for any kind of news on the Western Conference, because it's too many teams to try and do by myself. Like I'm not paid to go and study the Western Conference, so I leave that to you guys. If you're listening to this show every week and you want at least a taste or a smidgen of what's going on league-wide, Steal Some Time is a great place to go. You guys do a great job with that show, so thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. Yeah, very appreciative of that.
I think I promote their show more than I talk about ours sometimes. I think we're at our plateau. We can get some people their way. All right, Scott, thanks for joining us. Let's talk again or get together sometime in the off season. And I'm glad it's finally here. But I'm ready for next season. I need announcements, and I know you know stuff already. I'm not even going to try and ask you. I know you know some stuff.
Let's just say let the fun begin. That's all we got to say.
I'm ready to see what happens. All right, Scott, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time.
All right, see ya.
Well, thank you.
Nice. I've been talking to him for a while about trying to get something on the show, and it feels like with the off season now that we've got more time to bring some people on. I got to do it. We can steal some time and bring some other people on. So we'll try and do that as much as we can in the off season and kind of go, like I was saying the other day, like a step outside the regular circle of people. Like we bring in the Rowdies players or we get Neil Collins. Let's go a little bit outside that circle and let's get some other perspective.
And Patrick, that's not an invitation for you, by the way, as it's not a default invitation for you because we don't accept losers on the show. So when you lose a championship game, you kind of disqualify yourself a little bit there. So that's part of the problem there.
You know, I do. One thing about your poll that I was going to mention.
Okay.
Oh, that sounded really bad.
Anyways, we're not that kind of unused substitute.
Well, I mean, some of us.
Matt?
Well, you're still single. We lost out on the thing of we don't have the ability to say, well, at least we lost to the team that won the championship. Which is like the little way, like the one thing sometimes you cling on to at the end of the season. Well, at least we lost to the team that won the championship. Like we didn't lose to somebody that went out in the next round 5-0 or something. No, we lost to the team that blew a lead on their own home field for the first time ever.
I'm just saying, for what it's worth, just because I know it's going to stir some feathers. At least we didn't get swept by the Blue Jackets.
Ooh. Wow.
You're welcome.
Harsh.
I love this platform sometimes.
Harsh. All right, so let's dig through the notes and see. Do we even have anything else to? We really kind of don't.
Well, here's something. So we were talking about and a little bit with Scott here, but I wanted to kind of dive into this more just between you and me here. As far as conference scheduling and cross-conference play, so one of the things about that discussion is, they have like a version of Supporter Shield for USL, but right now it's just the basically straight up, USL regular season champion, but the team, not all, obviously the East and West are completely independent of each other when it comes to scheduling. So one of the reasons why the cross conference play scenario comes up is, well, it would make that award mean something if these conferences played each other more regularly. Now, that is an interesting thought, but what if I threw something else out here? So I'm a big proponent, again, if the teams aren't playing each other regularly, each conference should have a conference champion for this regular season standings. Okay, that's cool. My idea, even if it's not feasible to do a West versus East like we did a couple of years ago, where 2 games we would go out West and 2 games, 2 teams from out West would come here. What if the teams that finish number 1 in each of the Western and Eastern conferences, the champion of the playoffs would determine which conference hosted the winner of the other conference as a preseason USL kickoff game, basically like a Superliga game for the conference winner of each side. So in this case, Phoenix and Pittsburgh both finished number 1 in their conference to end the season.
Right.
The West beat the East in the playoff. So say a week before the regular season kicks off, the USL throws basically a party of sorts. And as a USL 2020 season kickoff, Pittsburgh goes to Phoenix as a special preseason Superliga type of game.
And the winning side, that conference gets home field for the champion. Is that what you're saying?
No. It's just it'd be just a preseason friendly of sorts. Yeah, it's just a preseason friendly type game.
So not even it doesn't count in the standings then.
Doesn't count in the standings. It's just it's a one-off preseason game where basically, again, it's just a friendly thing, but it would be something that the league could promote as the kickoff weekend or whatever, the season's going to start, and make it like a highlight type game for the league as a whole, something that they could promote as a way to congratulate teams that finished in first place. And it's influenced as far as who hosts by who wins the actual championship game.
Okay, so the conference that wins the game hosts the preseason. That team,
So that's the thing.
Phoenix, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, Phoenix. So Phoenix finished first place in the West. Pittsburgh finished first place in the East. And in this year, because Monarchs beat Louisville, that means that the Western Conference hosts the hypothetical Superliga game.
Right.
That's what I was thinking. It was a thought that I came across about what kind of a Superliga match could we have between the conferences, and if we couldn't get a regular season thing scheduled. And that was kind of one of the ideas I came up with.
So we had a couple of years ago, had a guy writing for the site who used to work for the Silverbacks. His name's Corey Langley. I think he's still in the area. I know work got really busy for him. He wasn't able to do as much as he wanted to. But he had kind of proposed the same thing. I can't remember if it was right when we switched to USL or if it was if he had said something to who was the to Bill Peterson back when NASL, and it was I think he was having the regular season champion versus the playoff champion as the first game of the season. I like the idea. I like the idea of doing it more interconference play. The only thing that kind of sticks out in my head is, if we did it right now, it's going to be everybody plays one team, basically.
Yeah.
And that's you're dipping your toe in water unless you're all of a sudden going to play a whole bunch of extra games, which I don't think is likely. Okay, it's one game. Is that really enough? So I almost wonder if So I like the idea of doing that, the first kick kind of game, like a preseason kickoff, whatever you want to call it. But maybe you could do more, like with the preseason games and preseason training, have some of the Western teams come out to like IMG for training or whatever, and play games here against some of the Eastern teams. So you get a little bit of insight into those teams. You get a little bit of awareness and familiarity. But at least in the very beginning, it's not something that's like a counting in the season standings kind of thing. Yeah, I'd like to find some way to do it, though. I mean, it'd be cool if you could do... I know MLS did the unbalanced schedule for a while. You played some teams twice, you played some teams once. Like, to play a string of these Western Conference teams, to play more than one, but that's adding a whole bunch of extra games to the schedule, which... Now that the USL's got their Players Association, is going to be something that they would have to sort out together, I would assume.
Yeah, I don't see adding games at this point. As far as as far as regular season goes, and adding a significant number of games, nobody should be hardly playing more than like 34 in a season.
Yeah,
I mean
it feels like we're in a good spot right now.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be really, really, really tough to say, okay, let's add 6 games to that or something, or even 4 games to that. I mean, that, I don't know, but, and here's the thing, though, as teams move up, as teams drop down or disappear, with all of the crazy rumor swirls that we've heard over the last several months about the 2 teams, possibly moving, a lot of them moving down, it might free up the schedule to maybe making that something of an option again, because that was one of the reasons why they did it in the first place. We did the Western Conference or the interconference play crossovers because the individual conferences didn't have the team number to support a full regular season amongst each other. Right. That was the whole reason we did it. So, but yeah, I mean, there is a degree of, like, if a Pittsburgh gets 2 teams from the West to play, and by happenstance they pull Colorado Springs and Tacoma, and then Indy 11 turns around and they get Phoenix and Reno, it's not fair. I mean, granted, it's random, so it could go anyway, either way. But, there is a degree of how do you make that. How is that fair? Is that even solving anything? if your number 1 team's playing a last place team and your number 2 team or whatever's playing a top 1 or 2, like, I don't know. That's one thing that makes me nervous about it.
So something else you mentioned, Jordan, I should really write some of these things down in advance because they just pop in my head. But they pop in my head during the middle of third period, and then all of a sudden I'm thinking, wait a second, I should be paying attention to my class, not thinking about hashtag content. What I think would be kind of cool to do is if it looks likely that we're going to have maybe at least one game. Ideally, if you could find a situation where you did a home and away, even if it's 2 different teams, like you played one here and one you traveled to, I'd like to see them, instead of the scheduling computer picking the teams at random, just build the spot into the schedule, and then they do the teams almost like a cup draw, where you've got 2 buckets with balls or whatever the team's name on it, and they draw to see who you're going to play, who's going to host, which West and which East, and who's going to host and who's going to travel. That'd be that at least add a little bit of fun to if it's only going to be 1 or 2 games, spice it up a little bit.
I mean, the fact is that it's an event. It'd be something that even if it's a web stream, you could sell a few advertising dollars for it. I mean, you have a sponsor for the draw for the regular season. Okay, interconference play. It's a marketable thing.
That could be part of the weekend with the USL Superliga. You have the game, you have the draw for the crossover conference crossover, or whatever you want to call it. You could make it fun. I mean, some people are going to look at it and go, "Oh, it's kind of cheesy." Whatever. It's lower division American soccer with teams like the Rowdies and the Roughnecks and the Monarchs, and you can have fun with this. It's okay to have fun.
So we're going to segue here as far as hypotheticals to something a little bit more pressing, something that kind of caught my eye or whatnot. Preseason and how Charleston's situation might change the preseason landscape, because one of the things that Charleston has done for years is they have always hosted the Carolina Challenge Cup, I think is the name of it. For years, they've hosted that at Black Cloud Stadium, then it was whatever, and then it was MUSC, and now it's a pile of dirt. Moment of silence. Okay. I'm curious, with that stadium gone, with the facility moved to basically a random patch of grass that's going to have a couple of field lines painted on it, how does that change the preseason market? And does that strengthen the Rowdies' ability with the Suncoast to maybe draw more teams, hypothetically? Does it reinforce our position of having it in general? Because obviously we technically haven't heard anything officially about Suncoast for next year. At least nothing that I know of. I haven't personally. So I wonder how that changes the preseason market, as it were.
You want to know what I think happens? I think Charleston teams up with North Carolina FC and moves the games to Cary and keeps the name Carolina Challenge Cup, and now you've got two USL Carolinas teams involved. And they all look at Charlotte and laugh.
I would say that makes sense. It would just, if that was the direction they end up taking, I'd be kind of surprised they haven't already announced it yet. Considering that it would be so obvious of a move, which, granted, maybe they are talking about it. And of course, as all business negotiations go, there are two sides being really picky and they're waiting till the very end to finalize something. So, I mean, maybe that's what's going on there. But
in my mind, in this scenario, North Carolina has the leverage because they have the stadium. And Charleston has the need, so it's probably something still being worked out. That's just, I mean, that was, as soon as you mentioned that, that was my first gut thought was it gets moved to Cary. And especially after Steve Malik was on Twitter talking about the giant economic impact that North Carolina FC and the Courage and the NCFC youth are having on the local area. I can
give me a second. Give me a sec. Okay, yeah. Thanks, Malik. All right, thank you. Moving on.
There's your unsubs lullaby for the night. But speaking of that, I got an email. I guess it was today. Maybe it was yesterday. An email. One of our regular preseason teams might. I mean, I don't know if this really affects them in the long run. But there's been some changes to the Florida Cup. Spartak Moscow is out because they had not obtained their U.S. visas in time. So they are out of the Florida Cup tournament, and replacing them is New York City FC.
Well, that's kind of out of the blue.
Yeah, so with them, they're one of the teams that usually makes the trip down here anyway. Maybe they extend their time here. Maybe they cut it short, and this is their only trip to Florida. Then we've got to find. I wouldn't mind having some new blood in the Suncoast Invitational, see some new teams. And when I say new teams, I don't mean Nashville or Outer Miami. Although, shout out to Ben Sweat, first overall draft pick in the expansion draft last night by Outer Miami. I guess, another former Rowdy having success at the site of Lockhart Stadium is. How's this going to end up? Yeah, I don't know. It would be interesting. And I still, there's so many teams. I think Phoenix does a preseason one as well. Teams that do these kind of.
I mean, there has to. There's like 70 teams that need to do preseason. So
yeah.
There's gonna.
I just kind of wish, like ours is just like, okay, hey, here's some games. Like, would like to find some way to maybe reconfigure that and put some. And I know it's preseason; you're limited in what you can do as far as making them meaningful, but something to kind of spice it up instead of just like opening up the folder from the year before and copy and pasting the info into this year's stuff and going with it, because it's kind of been the same teams doing the same things for the last few years. I don't know, like maybe actually throw a trophy into it somewhere and figure out some kind of system for someone to win this trophy. It'd be it's a start. I don't know. I like it. It feels like there's room for improvement. I mean, there's always room for improvement, but it feels like that's something that can be done too.
Exactly. But at the same time, it's also preseason, and you're not going to sell a lot of tickets for that technically because most of those are being packaged together with season tickets.
Right.
At least with how we do our Suncoast historically, that's it. So, I mean, you need preseason games, but putting on the events, I mean, there's always a cost-benefit analysis for all of that. And, I mean, obviously the club's going to do, especially with the case of the Rowdies, we're going to do what we need to. But, it's definitely something to consider and think about.
And it seems like an easy thing to pull off because you have so many teams coming down here now going to IMG and even playing out at Premier Sports now for preseason action that it's just kind of like open it and figure it out. And the other thing, I get you want to get fans in the stadium and get them excited. I think it would be kind of cool if they did the preseason stuff as almost like a barnstorming tour. You played one in St. Pete, you play one or two in Tampa, you come down to Bradenton, Sarasota area, play a game or two, and kind of mix it up and reach out and let other teams, other areas see you, and maybe that generates more interest in different areas too. They've got that stadium. You've got the two or three stadiums that you can do at IMG. You've got the main soccer stadium. Then you've got that area back in the back that they've used for some games, with like the one stand in the end. But that was fun. You've got the 5,000 seat built by U.S. Soccer Stadium, and I think it's 5,000 out in at Premier Sports where they have the Nike friendlies every year. You've got some options down here to move around and do this. Yeah, you read my mind.
So let's move on to the end of the show here because we do appreciate everybody listening here. We've had a great guest. We've had some good discussion, but we are at the hour mark. And there's not a whole lot
and it's
more
an
to talk
off-season
about.
show with no news.
Well, I mean, not no news, just maybe not specific to our particular club.
Right.
So we will go ahead. Our We Love Yous for this week. Matt, who is yours?
I mean, there's only one choice, right?
Depends on... No, go ahead and say it. What do you got?
It's got to be Nancy.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is the correct answer.
It's the only answer. Everyone knows Nancy. If you ever went to the Rowdy's Den, that was her stuff all over the walls. If you've been in the store, she's likely back there behind the register running it. We've tweeted about and posted on Facebook about the roller skating event they had to raise money for some of her medical things, and she had surgery this morning. I haven't had a chance to look and see. I know Matt, who used to work in the stadium store, was going to go out and check up on her this afternoon. But no, she's. Anytime I type the Rowdy's family hashtag, like that's like the face I see. Like nothing defines Rowdy's family more than Nancy. So, best wishes. I'm going to check up and see if we can find some info out. Hopefully, all went well today. But 100%, no question, not a second thought. The we love you, and I'm going to take yours too. Even though I know you're going the same way, it's got to go out to Nancy.
We did hear that the everything went as planned this morning. That did come out on Facebook. So, yes, no, obviously we had everybody who had wishes and prayers for her because she is absolutely the mama bear of the Rowdies fan base. Everybody in this area, if you've been to a Rowdies game, more than likely you know who Nancy is. She is absolutely the most unbelievable person, and we absolutely love her, and everybody loves her for her reasons. So, yeah, no, she's been in our thoughts. She's certainly been in my thoughts all day. We want nothing but the best for her. So we were very glad to see that the surgery went pretty well this morning, and she's doing well from what we understand. From what I've seen, some other folks post, she is doing well. But I mean, you got to look forward. Can't dwell on the here and now. You got to look forward and say, I can't wait to see her again next season because she is a face that has to be there.
if you managed to buy anything online this year, it was because of Nancy.
Yes.
All right. So I had I have this. I don't have it ready. I didn't get a chance to go through and check it out. The guys from Wolfface got in touch with me the other night and said they've got some new music that if we wanted to like change it up and but also I just said it's off season. We can just play some stuff in the show. I got home late tonight. Then my computer had to update, so it literally was like 7:50 before I think I even logged on. And we go live at 8, so it was a little bit of a rush to get everything ready. So I don't have it this week, but next show we will play some cuts from Wolfface, who does the song that we have appropriated as our theme song. But man, they're giving me suggestions. They're like, yeah, this is a good get hyped up song. Here's one after a tough loss you could possibly play, like the title is "Keep Your Chin Up" or something like that. So I didn't want them to think that we forgot about him. I am gonna play it. I just didn't have time. And maybe in the podcast version, I'll throw one in at the end.
Yeah, there you go. Who can forget about Wolfface? Honestly, they're great. They're honestly, and I'm not even saying that just from the perspective of being on the show and they have the music that you guys have been using for years. They actually are good. They are fun to listen to, and we appreciate them being supporters of the show and again, sending the music out specifically to and pointing out, hey, we think this. Yeah, that's right. Awesome. Honestly, we love those guys.
I was telling because they just played Fest up in Gainesville, and I was like, I always wanted to go there, but one, I'm old and I kind of live far away. But we had a couple people who listened to the show went up there and were like, oh yeah, we got to go see Wolfface. So while I'm talking to him, the whole thing turns from hey, here's some songs you should check out to me trying to find spots for them to play in Sarasota. Which then turned into last night when I'm at the bar. I'm talking to Derek, who owns the Shamrock, and we have that Townie Cup outdoor soccer tournament every year. I think we've pretty much convinced him that we need to turn it into, because the tournament kind of runs all day and we finish up by early evening. I think we're going to set up a stage next year and we're going to have at least Wolfface, maybe another band or two, and have Wolfface as like the headliner. But that'll be the evening portion of the programming. Is let's just play some music. So I'm looking forward to try and figure out how to get them down here as well. All right. Thank you specifically to Wolfface, like we just said, to Radio St. Pete, to Shamrock for all the stuff they do for us. Thank you to you guys for listening. Please continue to share, subscribe, rate, and review. If you'd like to support us on an ongoing basis, you can go to patreon.com/unusedSubsPod. All kinds of perks at all different levels. Thank you again to our sponsor, Roughneck Scarves, the official scarf supplier of MLS, USL, and US Soccer. Get custom scarves for your group or team at roughneckscarves.com. We're going to take next week off for Thanksgiving. Like we said, we'll be back the week after, so 2 weeks from today, December 4th. Mark it down. We're going to have, hopefully, all goes well, we'll have Jochen Graf. I'd love to have him in air quote studio here. Have him just come by my house and hang out. That there might have to be restraining orders or something if that actually happens. So I won't make him do that. It would be kind of fun though. Have him on and we'll talk about what he's up to and kind of what the off season is like from a player's point of view, because it's still kind of pretty fresh in his mind. Thank you guys. We'll talk to you guys soon. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Steven, go eat some turkey. Have some ham. Just anything besides pumpkin, because pumpkin pie is trash.
Correct. I'm gonna make some more of my apple pie salsa and homemade cinnamon chips, and yeah, life is gonna be good.
Now people are giving me crap for throwing pumpkin pie into the ocean online. But my daughter, like a lot of kids and some people, are picky eaters. She decided tonight she wants rotisserie chicken for Thanksgiving. Now, don't get me wrong. I like a good rotisserie chicken. That's not the bird I'm eating next week.
I'm going to say that's the only time of the year you ever eat a turkey.
Right?
I literally don't eat turkey except for one day a year.
Maybe a sandwich here or there, but it's got some ham and roast beef in there as well too, usually. So,
I mean, maybe I'll have some leftovers and take home, and I'll eat turkey sandwiches for a week, but that's about it. Like,
Yeah, I'm not
why
going
would
out
you
of
want
my
to skip the one day of the year you eat this meat?
I'm going out of my way for it. All right, you guys have a good Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.
Go Rowdies.
The Rowdies were here, the Rowdies were there, they kicked the wall around. The Rowdies were here, the Rowdies were there, then they pulled the ground. Oh, the Rowdies, the Rowdies, the Rowdies are the kick in the grass.
Okay, I never jump in after the final song, but there was something I was going to bring up half jokingly. First, we didn't even get to ask Scott about it, but he was talking about Landon Donovan hopping on in the halftime thing. Didn't even bring up the whole pro-rel conversation that came out. But I did want to say I've got the USL version of it all sorted out. Congratulations to Real Monarchs for being promoted to the Eastern Conference. It's as easy as that, guys. All right. See you next time.